And myself, Mahesh, and I work as a cloud solution architect with Microsoft. And so far good, 10 years now with Microsoft. Things are very rough at Microsoft. It's very great times, with all this OpenAI. But still the Kubernetes as a cloud native stream, I'm part of that for the last 4 or 5 years. And happy to be here. And thanks again, spending your time on weekends, coming here, learning something out of this. And kudos to the organizer as well. Today we'll talk about C groups. How many of you are aware of C groups, just in general? Okay. Anybody played with C groups, like tweaking? Where is the C groups configuration? Changing some of those C groups configuration? Anybody tried? Oh, perfect. In Linux, everything and anything, it's all around file system, right? And I try to make it as a little more, field experience. So as a solution architect, I work with digital native customers. Some of them are like 5 billion, 1 billion revenues, but still, they are all cloud-born digital native customers, right? They start with Kubernetes, they breathe day in, day out with Kubernetes. And some of the learnings, what I learned from them, I'm trying to pass it here. You can consider as an evangelism session or maybe notes for you to be aware of, some of these things can block your application journey towards Kubernetes. When you are on a high rail, let's say from a release train, right? So the 1.24 to 2.5, 2.6, 2.7 is also there. So that's about me, and we'll start with this. Have to face here. To just set the context, we all know that how the resource allocation happens on the node. As you know that there is a cluster which will have a lot of nodes. It starts with agent nodes, worker nodes, and then it goes up to 5,000 nodes. And some of these large customers have up to 10,000 nodes, right? And each node has got, the compute, storage, network. These are the three main things in cloud computing, right? Somebody provides computing as a service, somebody is offering storage as a service, networking as a service, Kubernetes as a service. But any node in the virtualization layer will have this choke, right? Either it's a CPU choke, memory choke, or a networking choke, right? When you are troubleshooting in any Kubernetes cluster, first these three are kind of a golden signals. You have to be isolate, to make sure the things are working fine. When you are moving to application layer, before moving to application layer. In a Kubernetes node, the CPU and memories are divided for. There is a memory allotted for some of them for operating system. Those are like reserved memories, right? Some of them will be allotted for your kubelet, CNI, CRI, CSI plus parts, and then there is a threshold memory we allot for for the part eviction, right? There's a screenshot should come here. Okay, perfect. Is it rendering properly? Okay. To just set the context, I think this is the very basic thing. You must be aware of it. And I had seen customers coming back saying that there are large digital native customers. I want to squeeze the maximum memory and compute whatever there in the spare capacity in the Kubernetes cluster, right? It's so difficult to densely pack the cluster. As you know that there are like 110 pods, you can put it in a particular node. But there are customers trying to do so many gimmicks to save the cost. Of course, the ultimate thing is do more with less. Going forward, I think do more with nothing. I think that's all. The situation is like that, and it's very dangerous because of all this macroeconomic whatever you can blame. But this is the fundamental things. There are customers coming back and saying that I don't want to give the threshold memory also. I want to maximum squeeze as much as. I have to then get into the nuts and bolts of explaining that hey, those are the memories you can't even touch it. Right? It's operating system memory. The Ubuntu consumes. You don't have any say. You can't even evict the Ubuntu out of this. If you move the Ubuntu out of this, you can't even run your, then CRI, they goes and, because they want to get maximum out of it. And any day when you are looking at some of the clusters, this is something, this is the fundamentals. If you are looking at, how you can, to set the context, that's the thing. And I'm sure that this might have, come in multiple places as a best practices. You must be defining your request limits and resource limits, right? And have you seen what happens after this? You set some values here, maybe the minimum amount of resource this container needs, and you just provide some number. How does the number translate into the underlying hypervisor, maybe the operating system, right? We think that this YAML file will be understood by our Kubernetes, right? The Kubernetes will talk to the underlying OS, right? Otherwise, what will happen? Like, the multiple parts, kind of part collision will happen. There is no guaranteed the pod lifecycle would happen. Have you thought about it? Like, there are two entries you put in. What happens behind the scene? Precisely, because we are thinking we have a luxury to work with the YAML file, but underneath whatever the value we set in, there is a C group, the control groups in Linux. It takes over and then it'll make sure the request and the resources are provided for you through the container runtime, right? Why do we need resource management in first place? If we don't set resource limits in any of these parts, I'm sure that it will hurt each other. It will try to. It's kind of race condition. If somebody gets in, let's say there is an application part, P1 gets in, then P2 will be indefinitely waiting to some space to occupy, right? The consistent performance, infinite loops, and maximum. I mean, these are all known things. Just to set the context, these are the resource management requirements are there to define certain criterias. Let's go to the essence of the talk. Allocate proper resource utilization, ensure. These are like very basic thing. This is the main thing here. C groups in Linux, it is there for quite some time, but to be frank with you guys, I think I never got into this topic until and unless there was some major escalation happened at the production site, right? I wasn't aware of that. Because I'm a Windows guy, started my career in 2003, all Windows, and then after Microsoft, fully Linux and Kubernetes are cloud native, right? And because we know that things are there, and we very much focus on the delivery side or whatever you call Kubernetes side and kubectl commands and other thing, right? But the short form of control groups, it's nothing but C groups are nothing but control groups in short form, and then it's a way to or hierarchically how you can actually align the process. It's a kind of a tree-based hierarchy, right? In Linux, anything is all configurable in the form of a flag files. You go to sys / something, then there is a flag file. You go and affect the change, modify the change, then the Linux will automatically pick it. But in Windows, of course, nobody's recording, I don't know, you have to reboot. So, but Linux is very beautifully, in that way you can play around with this configuration file and it works. So set of controls, I think the C groups has got like bunch of controllers. I'm not going to very deep into that. There are like 6 or 7 controllers around C groups, and it's all extensible, pluggable. You can build your own controller. It's also that's a C groups FS. That's a file system where you can go and tinker this file. More on C group. Without C group, we can't run a containers on Kubernetes. Right, we have to rely on C groups to run our containers, and there are like nothing we discussed. The limit resources are allocated based on the C groups blessings. Without C groups, we are not there. And the kubelet and CRI interface with the C groups enforce the resource management. I think this is the. How many of you know about C group V2? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Okay. C group V2 is a new OpenAI kind of a thing. Silently they released as a part of 1.25 Kubernetes version. 1.24 Kubernetes version is going to be out of support in July timeframe. But I see plenty of workloads, many customers still running on older version of Kubernetes, right? And if they want to go to 1.25, you don't have choice. You have to embrace 2022 Linux, Ubuntu. That has come default with C group V2, right? And what is a big deal for me? Let somebody is upgrading something, Kubernetes getting upgraded in sites, and Ubuntu people are upgrading in other sites. You are focusing on your CI/CD pipeline, fixing the code. I saw some stickers, no release on Fridays. Yeah, so the things are a little shaky when you are considering from the application side. Because we are all very much narrowly focused on what's happening on top of Kubernetes, right? Even if you file a ticket with support team, it could be AWS, Google, or Microsoft. None of them provide support for Kubernetes. I mean, they all look for those golden signals, and if infra is good, then they'll say, go back to your desk and fix it. Go and do the homework and come back, right? So we see the compute network storage signals are good. I don't know what you are doing on the Kubernetes nodes, right? Because what happens on those containers is up to you, up to us, right? This is the perfect example, the reason I said learning from the field, we got this support ticket. I was not part of, by the way, support, but I was pulled into this escalation calls, and I come to know that we were all looking all the signals, everything is good. But one concern, I moved my Kubernetes cluster or upgraded my cluster from 1.24 to 1.25. Okay. Earlier I was paying for 17 nodes. Now I am paying for 35 nodes. It's good for us, good for Microsoft or any cloud provider, because we are doubling the consumption here, right? But we don't know the root cause actually. We spent almost a week time to, and as usual, you file a ticket, the support will say, looking at all the metrics, then they'll say, the ball is on your court. I don't know anything about this. Your application is consuming, you have to scale and scale. This customer has scaled from 17 to 20, 25, 30, on a weekend to 35. Then Monday morning, there is an escalation call saying that, please architects, so-called your SMEs on Kubernetes, please come to the hall. There is a situation here. There's a big customer of us. They're saying that an Azure AKS cluster is consuming more than what they were consuming in other site, right? We have no clue actually what's happening on the Kubernetes cluster. Perfectly fine. We see all the signals were good. It was all, we don't know. Generally, you look at kubectl parts, health of the metrics. You do slice and dice the logs. There is nothing. There is not even a single error anywhere. But the memory consumption were going around 35%. I mean, 17 to 35 nodes. Somebody was saying that somebody is running some Bitcoin mining. We tried that also. Try to isolate. Are there any Bitcoin kind of gaming or malware, antivirus, virus? Perfectly, everything was fine. And the customer CEO was also joined the call, CTO joined the call, even though they don't know anything about Kubernetes, but still they want to know what is happening. The call went for 8 hours, 10 hours, and application team was, it was working in my machine, it was working in the previous, all the versions so far, but suddenly it is not working on AKS when we onboarded to, Azure. It is like completely like, I don't know, I moved to Azure and you are here, help me, because we were paying only for 17 nodes. And so jokes apart, there is a seriously underneath layers, we are trying to delay, where is this problem coming from? You'll be surprised when I tell you that solution, but I'll keep that for the end. History of cgroups, V1, V2. It was introduced by Google in 2006. Various controllers added on top of it over the period of time. And the industry, the Debian and RPM Linux flavors, they started adapting or embrace this V2 version. And if you look at this, Ubuntu was the last one to embrace it, right? And then that has become a de facto for 1.25. If you are if you are an ISV here, let's say New Relic or all this Kubernetes-based Kubernetes app developer, when you are developing a solution, make sure your application supports cgroup V2. Otherwise, you will get a similar kind of support tickets. I'll tell you that thing, why. So far, good. cgroup V1 is considered as legacy. I don't know when they will retire that, but cgroup V2 going forward, it's going to be a de facto. You don't have a choice. Some of the things about what is just to give a background, all the big logos there already embrace their operating system and also their solution delivery on Linux to make sure their application compatible with cgroup V2, right? And there's runtimes you see the runtimes are getting ready, already ready, and the stable version 1.25 onwards. That's the one thing I wanted to market here. When you create a cluster with 1.25 today, you don't have a choice. You will get cgroup V2. It's like it is there as it is with Ubuntu 2022, and you will see the surprise. I'll tell you in a while. It's a single unified hierarchy design in API. I think we talked about, this all again. I don't know, for some reason, okay, what's new in C group V2? It's just a kind of all this bunch of things are added on top of V2. As a V2 offerings. The major breaking change they introduced, the left side is a V1, and the right side is a V2. Can anybody make out the difference in this? It's like 5th standard question, like look at this diagram, tell me what is quota? Okay. Okay, quota, one question, one answer. Anybody else? What is the big difference here? Bytes, memory. Sorry? Share path, the CRI path. Okay.
The memory is separate in the first one, separate.
Guys, just disconnect everything. The structure itself, they changed. So we were also thinking of those parameters. But if you look at that, Linux was looking at some path in here, but completely in V group, C group V2, the path itself changed. You see that? There's a CPU and memory is a top level nodes here in the left side, whereas in the right side, it is part of that one single hierarchy. So when your application is trying to look for, let's say, it could be any runtime, language runtime, if it is trying to find how can I assign some memory or CPU limits, it will not find, because in the new path, newer operating system, right, completely the hierarchy or path has changed. This is a big difference. So you are also looking for all those labels because it's highlighted, right? So it's like maybe something in those highlighted line. As I said, right, the Linux, everything and anything, it's all file path. If file path is broken or symbolic links are broken, then you have to resolve. This is the main thing here. So how many of you develop Java here? I know some of them are Go language for cool thing. Java, okay. Okay. Top deck must be Go language. Nice. This application, this customer, the case study which I started talking about, right? They had a very older version of Java. I don't want to call them very classic company, but digital native companies, right? Somebody written the code, maybe a vendor or somebody, and they took the code also, I believe. Maybe only the container was stuck with them. So in the main thing, the C group and compatibility with the Java apps was no clue actually. The Java runtime, maybe we need Oracle blessing also to keep bringing those C group V2 support for the older version of Java. So what has happened? Oracle was releasing all the updates to the newer version of Java runtime, but this customer was stuck with the older version of Java, and we come to know that because of the Java runtime compatibility with the underlying OS, right? After 1 week or 15 days of war room kind of a discussion, we identified this is a root cause, right? Perfectly fine. We drafted an email saying that, hey, just go and upgrade your Java version, It's an easy thing for you. I'll tell you the email, I'll show you the email, but just redacted all those company name and other thing. So the support people, as you know, they don't have any clue how many versions of Java, how many variant of application, how many microservices, just one line. We found the root cause. It's turned out to be you are running an older version of Java, which is not compatible with the underlying Ubuntu 2022, which is why it is taking more memory. When you compare with the older version of V1 and V2, the customer replied saying that I have 230 application. Can you send people to fix it? Come on. And out of 230 microservices, and almost 30% of them were no code source. They were all scrambling, where is the source code for this? Who is, in charge for those 230 applications? Maybe some of them written, maybe first 100 application, microservices were written by maybe in 2015-16 era. They were keep enhancing the later, the latest ones, right? They took 2 days to come back and say that in Excel sheet, saying that I have no clue about, there are like 17 microservices or 20 microservices, no clue, there is no single owners. All those people are, left the company. I don't have an access to some of those repository, those VMs are still stuck in somewhere. I don't have a choice actually. So we started looking at, how can we mitigate the situation without changing or upgrading the runtime, right? Can you think of anything in the situation? Assume that you are in the situation of, you stuck with some legacy Java application, you move to 1.25, and you see that the memory is like every day you come and scale the nodes, and you see that it's keep on increasing. There is no source code, by the way. Any idea how can you? Don't say that I'll happily rent a box and then put it go away from Kubernetes, but that's not a choice. But no, if I so just a note, I think if I have a source code, I can upgrade my Java runtime version to avoid all this problem. There's no source code. Fix the v12. Where do you fix in Kubernetes? It's in Ubuntu. It's in Ubuntu. Do you guys still go and play with Ubuntu machines? In Kubernetes, you have to approach anything and everything through Kubernetes. Otherwise, you are hugging your machines. Sorry? Maybe that's a kind of a paracetamol for time being, but you have to go with the release train, right? 1.25, 1.26, this organization they can answer. Why don't they slow down this Kubernetes release, right? Sorry? Java? Heap size, again, is it possible to do something with the Java runtime? Your Java, you can play with all those outer settings, configuration, you can inject some parameters, values. We have 3 minutes to close.
Hi.
Okay.
If the Java code is not, the bytecode is not encrypted or signed, then it is easy to generate source code from the bytecode, right?
230 application, even 100 application, you can refactor. There is a way to, I understand that you give me a jar file or a DLL file, I can
generate the Java file, then change the version and recompile.
It may work for a hello world or maybe calculator application, but just imagine their business is on,
Do you want more options? There are like a lot of people with options here.
Yeah, I think, so how much time I have?
5 more minutes.
Okay. Just keep it short, guys. Oh man, I'm not there. Kernel level, I'm not comfortable with it.
We had a customer who paid us to do that, to use cgroup v1, so you add a kernel parameter. So there's a kernel parameter. If you add cgroups.unified equal to 0 and reboot, the kernel switches back to the v1 unified one. So we had a customer who paid us to do that.
Bingo, that's precisely. Kiran, you should give some goodies for him here.
Awesome.
So we'll continue. Again, I think this is all like, the kind of a war room, I was consuming this much memory. After moving to 1.25, I see there is a bump there in the memory. And I think we discussed about, some of those things, increased consumption. It was the interesting thing is like people who take it for granted, they just blame others. They assume that everything and anything what they create is all 100% bulletproof. That's a stereotypy thing, to be frank. It took almost 2 weeks to convince them that, I have to bring in Java related links, Oracle links, hyperlinks, showing that, this is something to do with your runtime. And you are running in the older stack. You get the point, I think. So many times we think that our application is perfectly fine, but it's not the case. We talked about this, and Oracle has promised that, and Red Hat Linux also promised that they will backport this to the older version of Java. I don't know, unless somebody pays them. I don't know why they have to backport that, changes to the older version of Java. And that's a state. Now you can understand there are two things changed. cgroup version is changed, and the Linux version also changed. You don't have choice to control this. I think that person has precisely told the same thing, that is the last slide. So far good. 4 seconds to go. Upgrade to 1.25, you see the memory peaking up. And after we done some magic thing, it has come down. I'll tell you the magic thing. This is a kind of a deadly email, Monday morning you go there. We manage 24 nodes and then it is 30 plus nodes. Please give me more nodes. Um, 150 services in a week time frame. See, this is the exact thing. It's easy to say something from outside, not so easy to change 150 services to in a week's time. If anybody can do this, please start a consultancy. I'll bring in a lot of customers. And I have to prove them, by doing a lot of POCs, and then a simple POC, like create a hello world. And hello world was, for some reason, it was behaving very badly in opposite. I mean, it was actually not favoring me. I have to run some busy bugs to simulate something, as like running something on the Java application, connecting something here and there. And then I have to tell them, hey, look at your older version of Java is, drinking more memory than, what is supposed to be. And somebody was started asking, is it possible to revert that C group? So, on one side, you see people are asking, bring more innovation. On the other side, I'm still catching up. Please wait for me. If possible, please help me to revert the changes. I don't know who will do this. I think Kubernetes communities will do it, or Ubuntu community will wait for it. Because I can't upgrade my application, right? It's all stuck with the legacy thing. Some of them I'm still finding for the source code. Maybe I'll try to contact them or WhatsApp or LinkedIn, because those developers are not even reachable. Then what is there the other way then? The only option for me, again, this is to show that JDK 11 comparing with JDK 17. You see the memory left and right. It was actually 354 MB in 2.4, and then, but actually after moving to 17, you see that memory has come down to drastically 44 MB from 418 MB. After upgrading the Java SDK version, right? Recommendations, I think, this is a known thing. I think in Java, you have to, if you are running with older version of Java and C group, the issue is brought in Java to limelight. But if there is any operator, any runtime, if you are creating as a part of your ISV solution or bundling an app on top of Kubernetes, make sure that application is compatible with C group v2. That's a takeaway from the slide. And also the C group v2 awareness, Oracle has promised that, on Red Hat is also working towards that. If it is not there, then else condition I will go back to the previous one, right? That kind of that awareness-based branching, they have to do it. You get my point? Let's say in the runtime, if I don't see this path v1, sorry, if I'm forced to go to v2, if I don't see the path, required path, then the fallback condition must be on v1 path, right? If you are running any Kubernetes cluster with 1.24 dot any minor version, it's time to upgrade to the SDKs and runtime to latest version of 1.25, because 1.25 you don't have a choice. You'll be forced with the Ubuntu 2022. And as that gentleman said, right, so we tried creating a daemon set, because SSH into the node is the easy thing. But in Linux, there are 30 plus nodes, and these nodes, it randomly comes and then randomly goes off. Never and never, play with those nodes. So we created a daemon set. The script is there in the that particular GitHub link, and then the daemon set will apply certain C group related configuration to revert back to the v1, right? This is actually a time gap solution, kind of a lifeline solution for you. The slide deck, I'll post it here. And also, I wanted to show something in the laptop, but unfortunately, any questions on this, reach out to me. And yeah.
Many of the older Java versions not even support the C group, right? The older version of Java, I mean, which is maybe 6 or 7 or that point, right?
Yeah.
It's not even support C group, right? So those customers may be enjoying now because they don't have any problem, moving from C1 to C2. They don't even care, right?
Correct. So this evangelism session has happened in the KubeCon itself, let's say last 2 years. I was trying to find, how come this issue was not surfaced in any of these previous KubeCons. And I found in November 2022, the couple of talks were around this topic, but related to the Java, there is a one slide, one line somewhere saying that if you are running an older version of Java, make sure. I don't know how much that, that message has passed to all the Java community. And yeah. Any question? The last question, because the other speaker is ready. Couple more questions. I think we have time.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the insightful talk. So, yeah, I wanted to ask about one of your slides where it said out of memory killer, a C group aware. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the out of memory, I think this is an interview questions, right? What is whom error? If there is no memory, then I'll kick them out, right? The C group awareness is something, how the application, the underneath application, the runtime, that must be aware of that thing. So, I mean, just these are like underneath thing. There's nothing to do with Kubernetes. So you will not actually work with, there is no relation with the C group, V2, V1 with Kubernetes at all. How the application underneath layer, it will interact with, your runtime. So if you're developing something, make sure that is compatible. How do you make sure it's compatible? You have to upgrade to the latest version of Java, runtime, patches, fixes. In this case, it is a Java. If there is any custom runtime, Python runtime, if you are following the traditional way of doing something, then make sure. So this, after all these findings, actually we sent out an email to all the ISVs. There are 4,500 ISVs, Java application running on AKS. We asked them to consider, please look at your application, make sure it is compatible for the latest version of Ubuntu and also the Java compatibility or any of the custom runtime, whatever you are bringing in, right? Out of that, some 20% of the people responded saying that I want some automatically run something and identify. I said, I don't have automatic, maybe I can create a company. So you have to go and understand that, how that application compatibility, memory consumption, upgrade, it's all developer responsibility at least here. Yeah. With that, thank you guys.